The need for purposefully landscaped school campuses. The future of mental health care in the world is somewhat daunting. Mental health disorders continue to rise. The U.S. spends $100 billion on medication for stress related illnesses. Part of what's disconcerting for adolescents is the rise of tech use, which I'll get into a little bit later on in the presentation. 70 to 80% of adolescents exceed the recommended 2 hour per day use of screen time. And this causes anxiety, creates poor sleep patterns, contributes to stress, poor well being. There are a host of issues that come from the use of our electronic devices that add to the rise of mental health problems. For Louisiana is luckily behind the national average of major depressive episodes and depressive episodes. Within the past 12 months, we've only had 10% major depressive episodes per 1,000 children, and for 2013, 2014, 10% as well. We're really just a percentage point behind the national average, which is good. However, we are higher than the national average in the amount of adolescents who did not receive help. So the last statistic was for 2015. 67% of our adolescents did not receive help, as opposed to the national average of 64%. Who did not get help for a depressive disorder or a major depressive episode. And this is for adolescents in particular, which is ages 10 through 18. Nationally, the Mental Health America says that youth mental health is worsening. Rates of youth with severe depression increased from 5.9% in 2012 to 8.2% in 2015. So, as educators and as educational leaders, we need to be thinking about the rise of mental health issues, how it affects our students, our adolescents, and what can we do best to mitigate what seems to be something that is an issue, a phenomenon that is not going to abate and that can have debilitating or detrimental effects on our students' lives now and in the future. So, what can educational leaders do to combat the rising mental health issues that our students might face? Attention restoration and stress reduction are key benefits in the mitigation of stress and depressive issues and mental health issues among students. When kids are adolescents in the adolescent age, 10 to 18, in particular during puberty, their brain is very plastic. It goes through a series of changes, in particular the amygdala. And sometimes those changes are permanent. So if a student or an adolescent is experiencing chronic stress, that chronic stress could negatively affect his or her brain. The rise of tech use, therefore, and it's how research has shown that rising tech use promotes anxiety and stress, is somewhat concerning. Social networking systems provide anxiety in adolescents. Behaviors with the devices are likened to behavioral addictions, in which the adolescent has to compulsively continue to check his or her device, to check his or her social networking, creating a phenomenon called FOMO, FOMO, which is fear of missing out. So their anxiety, their stress continues to rise with the use of social networks and electronics. What is a good amount of time to be outside, to have that nature exposure, to sort of combat that rise of stress and anxiety? Well, 20 minutes, a 20-minute break outside is good to restore attention, as opposed to a 20-minute break inside. A 20-minute walk in the park is roughly equivalent to 2 doses of a child's ADHD medication. So stress Let's think of our adolescents in particular. Stress comes from attention fatigue. When you're concentrating for so long on something, your attention capacity becomes depleted. It is a resource. And so you get stressed because your competency on a particular job or task is reduced. Okay, so you need to take a break. And where is the best way to take that break? It's outside. Students can perform better after being refreshed. Nature exposure helps to restore that mental well being. Benefits of landscaped school campuses are myriad. So, this research focuses on how educators and educational leaders, school board districts, um, principals, parents can help give children tools to combat their rising stress, which leads to anxiety, which leads to depression, to other mental illness issues. So, first of all, landscape school campuses decrease ADHD. They promote different types of play. So, for example, if you are not inclined, or if a child is not inclined to play basketball on an asphalt court, or play other sorts of very physical, rule bound games, different types of landscapes give him or her an opportunity to do different types of play, use their imagination, or find an area where they can just relax and sit and regroup. Increased attention restoration and stress reduction. Taking breaks outside has proven to be more restorative than taking breaks inside. Improved achievement scores. Schools with campuses that are all natural or mostly natural, labeled all natural or mostly natural, have higher achievement scores than schools that are mostly built and with mostly concrete landscaping surfaces. We're also trying to help students we're also trying to help them be stewards of the environment. We're tapping into that innate affinity with the earth, with nature, that comes from our evolutionary ancestors. And so by giving kids as much exposure to the natural environment, particularly when they're stressed or overwhelmed, or having a mental health issue, we're reconnecting them to the beauty of nature and to our oneness with it. And lastly, we want kids to build resilience and to have competency in their lives, to be able to look optimistically at setbacks and say, I can overcome this, rather than I'm going to be defeated by this. And so giving them the tools to figure out ways to combat stress, to alleviate stress, to cope with mental health issues such as natural experiences, is good for helping kids learn about coping skills, resilience, self efficacy, which in turn leads to better mental health. So there are three main elements for effective landscape design. First of all, tree density and vegetation. The more trees, the better. And the trees don't have to be, the vegetation, the landscape doesn't have to be very well manicured or constantly pretty. It can be rough as long as it's just natural and with vegetation, not flat and boring. Window views are very important, particularly at lunchtime from the cafeteria, as well as from classrooms. Sight, being able to see sunlight and take sunlight in through your eyes, is very important to that restorative potential. And then, like I said earlier, having quiet areas where students can get away from the hubbub of campus life and just sort of chill and regroup among themselves. Possible solutions. So, first of all, you want to, if at all possible, as an educational leader, you want to get in on the ground floor. If a school is being built or something is being redone, like reconstructed within a school district, you want to be on that ground floor and present this research that says it is not, the landscaping is not an afterthought. It is an important component of the child's learning and of the child's mental health. If you can't do that, which many of us would like to, but if you just want to change the current school environment that you're in, you can create a living wall, which is shown here in the picture on the right and the research listed here. You can have standing plants in your classrooms. Um, and you can also have pictures of nature views. While pictures aren't as restorative as actually being in nature and experiencing it, they do show some restoration potential, and it's better than nothing. So, as school leaders, we need to take a chance and experiment with how we can help children, how we can help promote better mental health for them in light of future implications. So, I present this particular concept called vis medicatrix naturae, which is healing and strength through nature, that nature helps to minister to the mind away from civilization, and that this is a particular philosophy that as educators and as educational leaders we should employ. Because school age children spend roughly 14,000 hours at school from kindergarten through 12th grade, it is incumbent upon us as educational leaders to provide them with the most success and the best opportunities, whether it's skills, for resilience and combating setbacks and tough times. So it is incumbent upon us to find ways in which to help children navigate through life and stress, which is a natural part of life. College campuses were originally built away. So the whole concept of a campus, which is the Latin word for field, was supposed to be away from the hustle and bustle. It was supposed to be in a natural environment. And there is a gap in research for adolescents in particular. There's a lot of research about very young children. There's a lot of research about adults taking breaks in nature and how nature helps them to promote various cognitive skills and attention restoration and this sort of stuff. But there really isn't much literature done specifically on high school students and middle school students. And so I think that as educational leaders, we should experiment with some of the practices on the possible solutions page to add to that growing research to help kids as they get older. Again, good mental health is not a luxury. It is a necessity for a healthy society. It builds competence, resources, and strengths. And those are the gifts that we want to give our students as they leave our schools. And that's why we need to do everything that we can and relook at the involvement of purposefully landscaped school campuses for our middle and high school adolescents. Thank you.